Welcome back to Pastoral Apologetics, and we are now out of the Pentateuch, and we are now into the historical books, or sometimes what is called the former prophets in the Old Testament. But we're answering the question of what are these books of the Bible about? And this time, for this installment, we're going to talk about what is the book of Joshua about. Joshua is primarily about inheriting the promised land. Now, the book of Joshua was written by Joshua, as was probably the last chapter of Deuteronomy, around 1400 BC. The phrase that comes up about 10 times in the book of Joshua is this phrase, until this day. And that is from whenever the conquest of the land took place until this day, and that could be at the end of Joshua's life, or if there was another writer who, and there are scholars who believe that there's another writer who completed the book of Joshua, just as Joshua completed the book of Deuteronomy after Moses' death. But the thing that's important to note, as the children of Israel are inheriting the land of promise, they're fighting their wars, they are dispossessing the Gentiles who were living in the land of Canaan until now. The thing that's important to note is that they are fighting for the land, but the land doesn't ultimately belong to them. The land belongs to God. And so the reason that God tells them this over and over, that the land is his, is that if they don't obey and steward the land, he will kick them out. And so the beginning of the land, the beginning of the book of Joshua, because there's so many wars and battles and all of this, it opens with the charge for Joshua to be strong and courageous. And God promises that he will be with Joshua in the same way that he would be with Moses. We see this again in Psalm 1, whenever we get there, when we see the blessed man in Psalm 1 is fulfilling what God promises to Joshua. But there's two things that they have to do, and this is really important, I think, and when we talked about living a victorious Christian life, there's two things. Number one, they have to set up memorial stones, and that's in Joshua chapter 4. And this is the thing that links them to the past, the spot where they crossed the Jordan. The spot where they set up the stones in Hebrew is called Bethabara. It's our house of the crossing. And this is an important spot in the New Testament. In John 1:28, it tells us that Bethabara was the place where John the Baptist was baptizing. And so the stones would link them to the past and what God had done for them previously. And then the second thing that happens before they go into the land is that the men were circumcised in Joshua chapter 5, where there is a whole new generation of men who are about to go into the land. And so now they get circumcised, they consecrate themselves, because circumcision was that physical representation of Israel entering into the Abrahamic covenant. And by the way, if the goal is a military strategy, this isn't the way to do it. Like, hey, would you like to have a minor medical procedure before you go into battle? That's not the way you do it. But see, God is getting the people ready to take the land. And that is more important than actually even taking it, is for the people to be ready to take it, because God is going to give them the victory. And so they need to be fully committed to the Lord in obedience to him. And so most of Joshua records the battles that are either won or lost. But here's what I want us to think about for a minute. Why doesn't God just wipe all of them out? All of Israel's enemies out without even a fight. And here's what he says. Moses tells the people in Deuteronomy chapter 7, "And the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you little by little. And you will be unable to destroy them at once, lest the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. But the Lord your God will deliver them over to you and will inflict defeat upon them until they're all destroyed." God wants his people to depend on him, and that's what God is doing with you, and that's what God is doing with me. It's why Jesus taught us, give us this day our daily bread. And so why doesn't God just remove every sinful desire, every sinful opportunity, or whatever, every problem that when you come to know him? Why? Because he wants us to lean on him daily. So at the end of the book, what happens? As they had to commit themselves to the Lord at the beginning of the book, at the end of the book, the people have to recommit themselves to the Lord, to serving the Lord, and they did for the rest of Joshua's life and the leaders who outlived Joshua as well. Things are going to change when we get to Judges, and we'll explain that next time. But I hope this has been helpful to you. Until next time, keep reading.